Hello,
Hello,
how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Let's change the gallery. Where are you? That looks incredible.
Thank you very much. I'm in a place called São Miguel in the Azores.
San Miguel, as in the beer, or Sal Miguel?
São Miguel. If you Google São Miguel, you'll end up in Brazil, which is not where I am, but I'm in the Azores. It's an island it's an island in the Azores. The main town here is called Ponta Delgada, which is kind of more popular, I'd say.
Yes. Oh, it
Yeah.
looks very nice. Is it warm?
It's like between 16 to 20 degrees, so yes, but still got to wear like a sweater.
It's tough. It snowed here yesterday in the UK.
That's very nice.
Yeah, just not properly though, not enough commitment, just little flakes,
Mm.
which is never good enough.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of drivers in Nürburgring struggling because it's snowing there.
I
As
know.
they go.
That was insane, wasn't it? Proper
Yeah,
snow.
yeah. Like
My
snowball fights on the racetrack.
No, the ring always chucks out the most random of weather conditions, doesn't it?
Yeah, I remember. I think it was like 2 years ago when they were at the 24-hour race in June, and it just snowed halfway through the 24-hour race.
That's right. Yeah.
It's insane, but it's pretty cool. But I'd rather not be in the car at that point in time on slicks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everyone would agree with you there.
Yeah.
um, so, Mister, it's lovely to speak to you. This might end up being quite a long interview because there is so much to chat about. And you also had like loads of questions that came in on Instagram. So I hope you're sitting comfortably.
Yeah, I am. I'm in my garden at my Airbnb. It's my Airbnb right here.
Good. Very
Yeah.
nice.
We've met once before in Macau.
Yeah, I was looking back. I think actually what I worked out was I think I interviewed you maybe at Silverstone in maybe 16 when you were doing maybe the Euro Formula or International
Mm.
GTs or something at that point. We're going
Yeah,
on today.
yeah,
And then, yes, then 2017 happened. And obviously, I go every year to Macau for touring car.
yeah,
And I was there doing, and then it was that crash, wasn't it?
yeah.
We might as well start with that actually. Talk us through it. I know you will have said about it a million times, but my listeners, there'll be a wider range than just motorsport land. So just
Yeah.
talk us through what happened in that very crazy race.
Well, to the listeners that aren't motorsport fanatics or sports, let's say, uh, when you're an athlete or a sportsman, you need something to put you on the map, and this is something that you can't force. It's nothing that you can ever predict. It's something that just happens after a lot of commitment, I'd say, to your sport. And yeah, I went to Macau, and I just on my first season of European Formula 3, and it went quite well. Had a win, had a couple podiums, and but nothing like, let's say, crazy. And I was looking for another year to do F3, and we went to Macau for like the Formula 3 race, and turned up, and it's my favorite track for sure. And yeah, I just kind of, in Macau, you need a bit of luck, you need a bit of a risk over reward kind of thing. And I ended up fighting for the lead of the race towards the end. And there's like a rule of thumb in motorsport: if you win Macau, you'll go to Formula One, pretty much. And I was in that position where the race is quite long, and we were getting towards the end of the race. I was catching the leader, and yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to is to watch the video in reality. All you need to do is Google Ferdinand Habsburg crashed, and then you'll find it. It's the first thing that pops up normally. And yeah, just we got to the last corner, and I had to make a move because nobody remembers who finished second. And I did a move which in a corner which I don't think it's really ever happened, and went around the outside. And me and the leader, well, at that point I was then leading because I had done the overtake. We both crashed, and it's devastating. But I knew there was like 50 meters left to the finish line, so even just with 3 wheels on my car, I pushed full throttle, and I got across the line. But unfortunately, the guys behind us had overtaken us because we were in the wall, and I finished 4th after leading the Grand Prix, 50 meters to go. And I have the record of the highest finishing position in a single-seater race with less than 4 wheels. So that's an achievement in itself.
Macau, I mean, you've got to have balls of steel, haven't you, to go full throttle around Macau?
Macau is just it's a street circuit, so it's not forgiving in that sense, and you need to build up your confidence because, like I said, there's a lot of high risk, high reward kind of situations. So you can drive around Macau safely, like on any racetrack, but you're just not going to be fast. So coming up to the race, I think I had just touched the walls, I don't know, like 8 or 9 times, where at 300 kilometers an hour, generally touching walls is not something that you want to do. Hold on, it's just starting to rain. I got to go inside. 1 sec. Sorry about that. That's the Azores for you.
You tempted fate there.
Here we go. Yeah, so
yes, touching walls at
touched the walls a couple of times. Unfortunately, never bent anything or broke anything. So it's a high risk, high reward place. If you've got the confidence to get closest to the walls, you'll be the fastest. So that's pretty much it.
It is. I mean, I think the first time that I actually walked the track, then I really realized, because there is not a lot of space either side of a car, is there? There's not a lot of space either side of your wing mirrors. There is not a lot of room, even if you're driving in the middle of the road. It's pretty gnarly.
I don't know. It is kind of like if anybody can ever think to the most high adrenaline thing that they've ever done, that's pretty much it. But for 40 minutes straight for the whole race, you know, and it's a constant rush. It's what makes it so exciting as a driver. And you're just constantly on the limits because it's such a big thing to win. Yeah, so anybody that's done the best roller coaster or the most amazing skydive or done the most crazy adventures, it's all that put together in a way, because on top of that you fly there you know, like a week and a half in advance to adjust to the time zone and everything, and to the humidity, and you do some training and you do the track walks, and it's a whole procedure, and you're there to focus, and that's what makes it really, really exciting as a driver.
That was quite a big turning point for you then, wasn't it? Because then 18 you must have done Daytona, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, LMP2. That was your first foray into endurance racing, right?
Exactly. I got the call from Sam Hignett at Jota saying they have a seat available at Jota. They needed a silver driver, which I was at the time, and which is that racing driver rankings. Basically, you have the gold, bronze, silver, gold, platinum. I was a silver because I was a young racing driver, and yeah, went to Daytona. We finished, I think, 5th or something overall, which was a pretty good achievement. But the first time racing for 24 hours, it's again one of those things. It was a crazy couple of months for sure. Macau, and then your first 24-hour race, insane.
And how old would you have been at that time?
2017, 2018. So that's what now? 3-4 years ago. So I would have been 19, something like that.
That's quite an incredible feat, isn't it, to have ticked those at the age of 19?
I mean, it was for me for sure. It was like I think that I wanted to go back to Macau straight away. I wanted to explore all different avenues. Growing up wanting to be a racing driver, this was kind of the dream, you know, getting these invitations, going to these different places, exploring new avenues, driving lots of different racing cars, and the Daytona prototypes, they are so fast, they're so exciting to drive. So yes, for sure. There was a lot more to come after that, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But just on the pure racing side, that was certainly a couple of dreams come true.
Just before we continue with your racing career, you just touched on the fact that it was so exciting. Is that when you were growing up, were you a thrill chaser?
Me,
Yeah.
like personality.
Yeah.
Oh, my instinct says no. Actually, I was instead of a chaser, more a dreamer, I would say.
Because the reason why I ask is I think that there's quite a common misconception that racing drivers are adrenaline junkies, but in fact, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you might be different, that actually, because you guys have complete control, don't you? It's not the same. You're not out of control, and I guess that's where the difference is. You don't fly around Macau out of control completely. You fly around Macau.
A little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Maybe Macau's probably not a very good example, but the aim is not to be out of control.
What's the best way to answer this? For me, racing was like it was so useful in my life because of the school that it gave me, because there's so few places in the world outside of sports where if you do this training with this mental preparation, with this kind of state of mind that you're in, there is few places in the world where you have immediate feedback. And if I was in the perfect state of mind, in the physical shape that I needed to be, and my mindset was exactly right, I was at the top of the timesheets. And this is something I only realized later, but became something so useful, because when I was in school, you would put effort and work into school, but you'd have to wait probably 6 months until you get your results of what it actually came to. And this is like, okay, I'll do a training on a Wednesday or a mental preparation on a Thursday. Saturday, Sunday, I'm getting my results.
That's
yes. And that's something that was fascinating to me growing up a little bit, that having that immediate response, because in racing is 99.9% in the head, just like most sports. It's, if your mind is right, it will go well. And that's, if you were able to get your mind in the right place where you are able to perform on a high level, and this can go into any place in your life, you're going to do well. And that was just such a useful immediate feedback thing that I ended up enjoying a lot, because it was so exciting, because I could start doing yoga for 2 weeks, and suddenly my performance would improve dramatically. Or I could go into sitting on my ass and not doing anything, and I would just lose the race. And
that's incredible. Yeah, so you
what a great school.
Yeah, sorry, so you really see the difference when you put different work in.
It's like nothing I've ever done before. And on top of that, racing is all about flow. It's all about being in the zone, and that being in the zone or flow is a state which is so unique, and it's so, sometimes it can be so rare to have such a high level of flow that you get addicted to that. Like, I got addicted to being in the zone. I got addicted to being in flow. So I hated racing when I was not in the zone. I hated it. I could not stand going in a racing car and not being in the zone, which can easily happen. But when you got your mind right and everything, and you're in the flow and in the zone, the feedback you get within the car is so incredible. It's like the only thing I can ever compare it to is having an amazing night out dancing all night.
Yeah.
When you forget about everything else, you forgot everything that's happening at home, at work, with your parents, with your sisters, with your girlfriend, boyfriend, doesn't matter. You're just dancing, and there's just the music and your friends or your partner, and you're moving around, and it's just you're in the same wavelength of the music. It's the same feeling. And this was my job. I mean, how cool is that?
That I can completely relate to. And that high is addictive, isn't it? Getting it right must be addictive.
It is. And that's why you're like so obsessed with perfecting everything. This is where perfectionism ends up coming in. And what even more interesting for me is if you become too much a perfectionist, the flow doesn't come anymore, because then you're trying to be in the flow, and that it doesn't come from trying. Flow comes from a place that I can't explain. It just happens, and you need to find something that triggers that part in you that goes into the flow. And that is for me racing. That can be for people that are dancing. That can be software engineers. They get in the flow when they're creating software. It can be anything, but if you find that, it's photography, you know, like if you're in the flow to find that perfect picture, that's my racing is that for me.
And so, I mean, we're jumping ahead of where I'd actually like to have gone, because I want to delve back into your career a little bit, but this is fascinating. If what for you can make that flow, or maybe now you've honed it a little bit more, but over the times, what for you would have been something that may have just put you off kilter a little bit?
Off what?
Off kilter. Like I know that, you know, a couple of the drivers that I've interviewed in the past would really struggle to let it go if they had a bad weekend, and that would put them off, you know. They would offset that flow, if you like, for maybe the next race. Even if they weren't able to let it go quickly, that seemed to be quite a key thing, is be able to accept when things don't go brilliantly and you're not in the flow, accept that maybe that was just a bad moment, and then get on with it.
I mean, anybody that has been in, I'll keep on going back to metaphors if that's all right, because it helps me as well. But anybody that's been in a relationship with a person, forgiveness is often the hardest part. Forgiving somebody for something that they did or did not do. And it's the same with your relationship with yourself. If you've made a mistake or something bad has happened, I'm somebody that always ends up blaming themselves, and forgiving yourself for maybe not doing the exact thing that I had set out to do, or not being totally focused, is super difficult. And if you haven't forgiven yourself for a mistake you've done, how can you focus on the next step at hand? So it's like it becomes again a school of being able to let go of things that have happened. That's part of life, part of understanding that I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I know I'm pretty good at what I do, but on top of that, at the higher level you go, the bigger the mistakes can be. So letting go of your errors is something that's not easy. And it's funny how I've gotten better and better at forgiving myself in my sport, and then trying to transfer that into my personal relationships can be super difficult. You're like, well, I can do this in a racing car. Why can I do this with you? You know, like, I'm really struggling.
And why is that? Why do you think that is? Have you worked that out?
Well, I got a lot of practice at trying to forgive myself in racing, even though I'm not very good at it yet. I certainly at least got to, you put a lot of attention on it, because, you know, if you don't find a way to forgive yourself for something that you've done, you're just not going to crack on at the next race. Yeah. And then when it comes to other people, I mean, I guess you can give it a certain point where I think athletes can be quite selfish people in general, which you have to be. You have to be quite self-orientated, especially at a young age, because you just don't have the capacity to have a lot of attention for everybody else when you're desperately trying to make your sport your number one, which is quite hard to understand for somebody that's not been a part of sport. So at the same time, it doesn't make it super easy when it comes to relationship with other people, because it's hard to explain why this thing is my obsession, you know, if someone hasn't found their obsession yet.
That's so true, isn't it? I think I mean, you hear it. I've always sort of seen elite athletes as being just slightly different for that exact reason. And I think it is that you have to, what is it, 10,000, you do something 10,000 times and then it becomes a habit, or, you know, then you're a professional at it, for example.
Yeah.
And I think there is that element in, certainly in all the racing drivers I've met as well. It's, to be the top of the game, you have to be in it 100%, don't you? All day, every day, all night.
Well, with me, it actually works a bit different if it's a more personal interview, which is more my style anyways. For me, I've had to have the opposite sometimes. I've had to come to here, you know, to these places where I'm not thinking about racing, where all I do is I go in the water, or I go surfing, or I go swimming, or I explore a mountain, or I go to some waterfalls, or I do something totally different. And you're faced with totally different sides of myself which ends out being the thing that keeps me going and keeps me sane. When I'm too crazy about racing 24/7, I end up getting too much into my head and I need to let go. My mind needs change all the time. If I don't get change, it gets very confused. But that's just part of the learning curve when it comes to getting to know yourself, and that then becoming an important factor in your sport. Like, you need to understand yourself well enough to know, okay, what state am I in? What does my mind and body need right now to be able to go to those last couple percent that you're not sure if they're there, you know? You can always work at 70-80%. Anybody can work at 80% all the time. Like, that's not so difficult. You need a bit of sleep, some food, and some water, and you're good to go pretty much. I'd say maybe, okay, I'll put that on to most people. But anyways, if you want to win races, you want to be the best at something, you want to beat other people that have done the same kind of training, the same thing for the same amount of time as you, but you want to be better than them, you got to go up to those 90, 95, 98% of your capacity to focus, to be in the moment, to go deep, to dig deep to everything that you've learned, to dig deep to every training session that you've done, to dig deep to that energy that you got when I first got into a go-kart when I was 11 and I knew it was for me. That's to dig deep into that. Sometimes I need the contradiction. I need the opposite, you know.
Who else does this? Who else around you does this? Do you see people and other drivers that do it as well?
I don't know. I don't think I share it so much, so I would be surprised if they would share it as much with me as well. I would say on a tendency level, I've always done things quite different to my colleagues. I would say the only person that I know who also shares his stuff is Da Costa, Antonio.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, he does his surfing. He needs his trips. He needs to go into the wild world. He needs to. You can see that he needs his. He needs to get away sometimes. But you have different kinds of people in sport. You know, this is just the way that I function, and it's important to me, and I'm sure everybody else has their things that, you know, I don't know, maybe somebody, all they need to do is play some guitar, you know, or cook, or spend time with their family, and they're reset, you know. And whatever you need to do is rock and roll.
It's interesting though, because from like a psychological perspective, what you're talking about is something that helps people in whatever they're doing. You know, like, it's really easy for us to get really bogged down when we're upset or we're struggling or going through something, or like you said about the brain, you know, not that you like needing that reset, because otherwise you're stuck in your head too much. And it's really hard for people quite often who are in that place to realize that actually doing something totally different will be the reset that you need. But it's hard to get to acknowledge that, isn't it? It's hard to be aware of that in the here and now and go, okay, right, I need to do something different right now, rather than stay in this chimp brain place, because it's not going to help me. But it's hard to go and do that.
I sympathize with people that get stuck, you know, like how many times I've been stuck, and it's quite extreme as when you're in sports, because if you're stuck again, like I say, you're at the bottom of the timesheet, and you go into the spiral where it gets worse and worse and worse, and you drive slower and slower, and then you crash because you're just not focused, and you're upset, you know. It's I sympathize a lot, and I hope that everybody that gets stuck in their heads have people around them to help them and go like, okay, like time to change, time to do something else. And it doesn't matter if you like it or not, you know, just think of something and go ahead, you know, have some fresh air. That's what I call it, fresh air, you know. That doesn't matter if that means literal fresh air or it means to just go and do something totally different, but take a deep breath and get out. You know, I saw something really cool which kind of relates to this for me. I saw a professional skydiver. He's like an extreme sport skydiver, like a Red Bull athlete kind of guy. And he was saying when he takes people up to do extreme heights at skydiving, really, really high, where you need like oxygen and stuff like this, and you're falling for a long, long, long time. He said what the worst thing that can happen is you associate your breath to the speed of your activity. So you'll be on this plane super high, and you'd be like panic, you know, fuck, this is so fast, like, oh my goodness. And he was like, if you just take a breath and you slow your breath down, you will make your activity go to the pace of your breath and not the other way around. And I love that analogy. And it's not even only an analogy, it's true as well, you know. It's like, if you are able to control the speed of your activity through your breath, you've already won. But if the activity is influencing your breath, you're just going to be everywhere and you know what's happening. You're completely out of your depth. You're a human being. You're supposed to be walking, climbing up trees, not jumping out of airplanes. Of course, your breath's going to be crazy. But how can we make ourselves jump out of an airplane in calmness?
Yeah,
you need to bring your breath back, and I love that. I use that all the time.
That's great. It works the other way around as well. If you go deep sea diving and you do the same panic breath because you're so low down, then you're just going to keep sinking.
Very true.
Like, suddenly you're in heaven.
Yeah.
I know that you do quite a lot of yoga and meditation, so we'll elaborate.
How do you know that? That's a secret. Nobody's allowed to know this. That's my secret.
I have all of the secrets.
Okay.
We'll come to that in a second. Where did we go off track? 2018 endurance. Okay, so then 19 you then did DTM land. 20 WRT, wasn't it? Audi Sport Team WRT for DTM. And the reason why I'm jumping on is because I want to jump onto what you've recently announced, which is
trees.
Hang on, wait. Before we move on to trees, stay on racing.
Yeah. Oh, what am I doing? What am I racing this year?
Yes.
My mind is already so focused. So I'm racing in WEC, World Endurance Championship, and European Le Mans Series, including Le Mans, with WRT, who are entering WEC for the first time, with Le Mans, like I said. It'd be my first Le Mans, be my first WEC, be my first ELMS. And I'm racing in ELMS with a Portuguese team called Algarve Pro Racing. We have the first race next week.
It's incredible, isn't it? And that is as a result. So Ferdinand took the ASLMS, the Asian Series Le Mans Championship title earlier this year, which you went into essentially, didn't you, to train for WEC, presumably? Probably not assuming that you were just going to go into it and nail it.
Of course, you've got to assume that every time you go to a race. No, I mean, I did Daytona in January, which did not go very well, unfortunately. We had a gearbox problem in the first hour. Very unfortunate, but did Daytona, did Asian Le Mans Series in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and I obviously am quite new to the car, to the prototype, the LMP2, and I got an opportunity to do these races, and that's the best way to prepare yourself. You know, if you've done all of those races, that's literally every single race that you can do in a prototype before the WEC season. So on that end, when it comes to mileage, I'm certainly ahead of most drivers, or most rookies, I'd say probably. That was the goal. That we won the Asian Le Mans Series Championship was a bonus. Not necessarily why we went, but me. But it's not a bad thing to have under your belt for sure. And also it showed me many things, like I'm new to endurance racing. I'm a sprint racer in my past, and it was a very, very strange moment when my teammate started the race and we were leading the race by like a lap by the time I was getting in the car, and suddenly you're a racing driver, and it's like I don't know, it's like starting a tennis match, but you're already 2 rounds up. Like you're 2/3 of the way, you've already won, and now you've got to get in, and all you've got to do is finish it. it's like a total strange place to be. Never been in that case, because I'm used to, you get in the car and you drive as bloody fast as possible, and suddenly it's like, okay, Ferdinand, you don't need to push it, no risks, take it easy, relax, just drive. And suddenly you're like, okay, this is not flow. Like, flow is everything, you know? And suddenly they're like, okay, we don't want you to go to flow or 95%, we want you to drive at 80% and just do your thing. And I felt a lot more risk of spinning or crashing driving at 80%, which was slower. So it was like very tricky to like experience that. But we won the race, it all went well. But those are the kind of things that you need to learn as an endurance racer now. Because there will be a time where you're leading a race and you've got 2 hours to go, and all you need to do is do your laps and make no mistakes. That's a job in itself. So especially if you're used to intensity, and that's how I got my zone. So I did my whole warm-up procedure and my mind setting as I normally would, but when I got to the car, I was ready to attack. You know,
yeah. And so how do you manage that? How do you sort of bring yourself back down 10%?
That honestly, I don't quite know what the answer is to that yet. Take a breath. It's probably the best thing. But I fell in love with intensity of high level focus.
Yeah.
Where you get to the point where you almost want to try to get as close as possible to a focus of a lion trying to chase you in the wilderness. And suddenly you've got to get into a racing car and kind of do like a walk in the park. But a very focused walk in the park. So anyways, I'm not quite figured it out. Maybe we can do another interview in like 6 or 7 months and I can tell you more.
Got the answers. Is it less enjoyable?
I've got to say, yeah, it was strange. I was very confused. I loved being or doing my best going to a high level. We won the race, but it was a very strange feeling to win a race like that, because I didn't really have to do much. I kind of felt like I was just the guy on the bench they had to put on because they had to by regulation. But I like to be the key player, you know. That's what I have been over the last years, and suddenly I ended up having to be the key player in many other races after that. So no doubt, I did the qualifying, I put it on pole position, all that kind of jazz. That I loved that. I love going out in quali and smashing it on pole. That's really awesome. And I had to fight in a couple of the races, which is good. But the races where you don't really have to do anything is like, it's strange, you know.
You're about to spend your whole year doing 2 endurance series.
Yeah.
So what will you do to get that?
Well, one has to say also the championships I'm going into are far more competitive than the Asian Le Mans series. So the chance that I'll be leading a race by a lap are very slim. And if I am, it will be just as nerve-wracking because you're leading the race by a lap in a World Endurance Championship race. So I think that it will be different for sure. I think if we are leading the race by a lap, we're going to be very psyched about it. Yeah. So I think it will be very different, but still, you've got to be prepared for those kind of strange situations where you just got to go around, you know.
Obviously you've got the crown jewels of Le Mans, 24-hour race. So how are you mentally and physically preparing for that?
For Le Mans? I don't. I do it race by race.
Okay.
I just think about what is the next thing that's going to happen. And when we get to Le Mans, that's what I'll be getting ready for. I've done a lot of work over the last couple of years, which I will come back to when I get to Le Mans for sure, when it comes to energy management, for example, just because it's a very intense week and a half, not like any other race, because most of the races is 1 weekend and that's it. And Le Mans is more like a week and a half. So that's a lot of energy management, nutrition, sleep, all these things are going to become quite key. And I definitely feel like I know quite a lot more about it than I did, say 3 years ago. But at the moment, I have my first race in Barcelona in a week and a half, and this is what I'm thinking about. That's my way I work, I'd say.
And how have you coped? Because I know that you had Sebring was cancelled, wasn't it? And so have you had 2 races cancelled? How do you deal with that when you know that you've got, you know, things coming up that then because of this bloody pandemic, it's changing fairly last minute?
I don't like it. I wanted to race at Sebring. I wanted to do things, and I'd say one of the toughest moments last year was February, March, when they canceled all the racing, and until like maybe May or June, there was still nothing announced. Like, we didn't know if we were racing at all that year. And since I'm 11, on any single point in time in the week or in the day or in the month or in the year, I could tell you what my next race is. Since I'm 11. And now, then I was 22 last year. It was the first time since I'm 11 that I did not know when my next race was. And my motivation crashed, my excitement crashed, my attempts to trying to get out of bed crashed. And it was just like, my goodness gracious, this is bloody difficult to get up and do some training or get up and do anything, just because I am a goal-orientated person. Suddenly this was gone. I did not even know if I was doing any racing that year. So I had to reprogram my mind and dust myself off and do some different things. And but yeah, it's not super easy. At least now I know when my next race is, so I'm not too stressed out.
Yeah, but you did keep yourself busy during lockdown, didn't you? Because were you working, doing shifts in warehouses, helping to
Well, I was in the army. I had to do my military service, and I was in the military sports department. Well, first in the atomic biological and chemical warfare department, where I did my training, and then I went off to the sports department, and all the sports department was sent to do night shifts in warehouses for supermarkets, because as you probably remember, everybody was doing the craze shopping, and the supermarkets were empty. Everybody was freaking out. And we had to start restocking shelves. So I did a couple of weeks where I had to do night shifts from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. trying to keep supermarkets full, that was very fulfilling for sure. That was really nice to do that, to actually be out there and be able to help people that are more frightened or more in a danger group that shouldn't be going outside, let's say.
Yeah, I think that sort of activity can really put things into perspective, can't it?
Yeah, for sure. That was very nice. But then again, when it all kind of stabilized and we still didn't know we were racing, that was the hard couple of weeks, I'd say. But in general, I enjoy myself at the army a lot.
And that sounds like that was good Le Mans training anyway, doing night shifts.
Trust me, it was, because I'd work until 6, then I'd get home at like 7, and then I'd do like 3 hours of sleeping until 10. Then I'd get up, do some training, have food. I don't know what I was having, breakfast, lunch, dinner, all random, whenever you felt like it. Then at like around 6, I'd sleep again for 3 hours till like 9. And then I'd get up and go to work again.
Oh, there we go. You don't need to do any prep for work.
I was saying in my past, I've learned a lot.
Yeah. So when you say about those couple of weeks, what did that do to you then? So someone who's clearly spends a lot of time, has worked a lot on their brain, their outlook, and all those things. When you say it was really hard to get out of bed and stuff, how did you manage that?
I do want to say, I mean, it was hard for every single person out there. Nobody knew if they had a job after the pandemic, after the first lockdown. Nobody knew, not nobody, but a lot of people did not know what's going on with their family business, what's going on with their job. And I was just in a similar state where I had a job and I did not know if this was going to continue. And I've been doing it since I was 22. I'd been doing it for 11 years at that point. And you're like, okay, this is crazy. What's going on here? And I just wasn't ready for that. And, I wasn't prepared for that kind of situation. Especially I was going into my second year of DTM. I was going in to win, Anyways, it was difficult for everyone. And we all had our own learning curves on that. I found more joy also in doing different things like the military and doing other things. But this was still not easy when you're so obsessed with something and then it gets taken away from you and there's nothing you can do about it. When you're faced with that for the first time in your life, for sure you have a bit of a shock.
So your team for 24 hour, you've got a pretty good team there. Robin even. How do I pronounce his surname?
Frines.
Frines. And Charles Milesi. I don't know Charles Milesi. I don't know Charles at all. But I do know Robin. Is that a world title winning team, do you think?
I bloody hope so.
I bloody hope so too.
I really enjoy my time with Robin. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Very funny. We get on well. Charles is a very promising driver. He did so well last year at Le Mans, and it's exactly what you need. And very nice guy. And we get to build our relationship. Obviously, I know the team well. I've got the same engineer from DTM last year, and the same team. So on that end, I think we're all got pretty good cards. But it's going to be difficult to compete with teams like United Autosport, with Jota, those guys that have been doing this kind of championship for a long time.
Yeah.
Know what they're doing. But my confidence is high with the team for sure. And in the end, I think it'll come down to Robin, myself, and Charles getting our heads together and making sure we have good teamwork.
Yeah, that you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, I guess, for a race like that.
I hope we won't do any singing because I don't think it'll be very good. But yes, hopefully we'll be having some good times, good bonding times. And the nice thing about endurance racing is you're suddenly a proper team. You know, like before, it's a very cutthroat. It's a very egocentric sport, sprint racing. And now suddenly, okay, if I have a strange thing, like I'm 6'1", nearly 6'2" in height, and Robin and Charles are like this, you know. So they're going to struggle to reach the pedals, and we need to find a happy middle ground where I can fit my legs in the car, but they can also sit comfortably. And that's the kind of thing that's the first lesson, that we need to find a right balance, that we all feel reasonably comfortable in the car. And this then will reach out to everything else. You know, where are Robin's strengths? Where are Charles's strengths? Where are my strengths? From what I know so far, I enjoy driving in the night a lot. So maybe that's the kind of thing. Okay, Ferdy, you're going to be doing most of the time in the night, and you're going to have more rest in the day and stuff like that.
What do you anticipate will be the hardest challenge for you making these steps?
I don't know. I think it will all be new. It will all be. I'm quite optimistic that it will go well. I think the challenges will be dealing with fall downs. You know, like if you're all working really hard and it's really difficult to deal with a technical problem or with a crash or something like that, where you don't really have that much control over it. Staying motivated, I think, is one of those things, which is just not very, very easy. In sprint racing, if you have a crash, you know whose fault it is, and it's the drivers, or unless there was a technical problem. But there's just one way to deal with it, which is getting over it. But getting over a technical failure, which has nothing to do with you, is even a little bit more difficult. And but I will say it well. I'm a very positive guy. I recently heard someone say something which I thought was awesome. I have reason to believe that the world wants me to be happy. I have evidence, something like this, you know, like you know, people that say I have reason to believe that the world has it out for me to have bad luck, and I have the opposite. So I'm optimistic on that end, that it will end well. And I'm also somebody that truly believes that if something bad happens that is out of your hands, don't hate it immediately, because it actually might just be the lesson that I needed. So. Sounds all very philosophical and intelligent, very positive, and it's true, but it's something that you need to ingrain in your mind when you're an athlete, because you're going to have more losses than you're going to have wins. It's just the way it is. You're not going to win all the time. You're going to win very few races, is the reality, in a proportion in your career. When you have that and you want to keep enjoying what you do, you need to believe that every single failure is something that you must appreciate, because and it's the truth. It's just the truth. It's a hard truth, but it's freaking awesome at the same time.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, the sort of the believe that you believe if you will or that you won't, you'll be right either way. You know, believe that you can or you can't, you're right either way. You know, what people tell themselves repeatedly, I think, can be what happens. And so when you talk about whether you see yourself as a lucky person or an unlucky person, can quite often be what the result is.
It's true. It's true. It's very true. I actually just started listening to an audiobook from Matthew McConaughey called Green Light.
Oh my God, it's so good, isn't it? His words of wisdom are absolutely brilliant.
God bless Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
What a blessing we have with him.
Yeah.
These are the kind of things one needs to remind oneself of, because when you're doing great and you're winning races, you know these things. You don't need to read Matthew McConaughey's book. When you're winning, you can do exactly the same as Matthew McConaughey's book. You know, green light. You're on the green light. When you're in the red light, it's when you need things to be reminded of, that it's what you set out to do and be. It's nothing else.
Yeah. And it's keeping, I sort of see it as a little bit like a jug of water or a glass of wine even. You know, like you've got to keep it topped up. So if you coast along and life is really good and you don't keep doing the hard work while life is really good, then when things start to creep in that are a little bit harder, or you know, and maybe some bad luck comes along, if you've not kept that glass topped up, then the speed that you drop is much quicker than doing constant work on yourself. So like you say about Matthew, you know, reading stuff and doing a lot of self-help, dare I say it, you know, but doing that work on yourself all the time when life is good, then when life starts getting a little bit harder, you're just much more resilient, aren't you?
I am a big fan and believer in that you need to make your life challenging sometimes. Like at the same time saying all that, when life is all good, it will come back down. So doing things that challenge you, saying no to people sometimes, or saying yes when you are too scared.
Yeah.
Those are the moments which make you, you know.
Yeah.
And for example, I'm out here in the Azores. I came out here alone. I knew I needed some time by myself, and I was in Portugal. I was at my racing team, and I'm a social person. I love to talk. I came here and I immediately met like 15 people about my age, and we were hanging out and having drinks, and that's super nice. You know, tourism is allowed here. The restaurants are open. You can relax. But yeah, I needed some time to come to grips with myself after having a pretty busy winter, and being like, okay, man, there's a lot of things you need to understand up here before you get into your racing season, because once that door is open with the racing, you're going to get in there, and that's all you're going to do for the next 2 months. And it's not always comfortable to do these kind of things where you kind of get your own little Airbnb and you're alone, you know, for 2 weeks. But
it's incredible.
It's been the fuel that's made me more and more the person that I have wanted to be.
You are very religious, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, it's a weird, I don't know how to say very religious. I don't know if there's a scale. I am a spiritual person. Yeah. I love Jesus Christ, and I believe Jesus Christ loves me. So that's probably my best answer to it.
The reason why I ask is that I know that you had, it's probably one of your other secrets, but you invited a priest to your hotel room at the Nürburgring for pre-race prayers. Can you talk us through that? Because I love that.
So I have a distant cousin who had just, I don't know how you say it in English, but he just got to Priestergeweiht. He just got
his life priesthood.
He became a priest.
Yeah.
He became a priest. All right. Young guy, Father Wolfgang, really, really cool guy. And he was in Germany, and I was like, listen, I'd love for you to come to my race. And during lockdown, a lot of places that we went to did not have any masses, no churches. It was not allowed for social gatherings. It was considered a gathering. And I try not to miss a Sunday without going to church. And that includes race weekends. So normally when I go to a racetrack, I find out where's the closest church, and if there is a mass that I can go to on a race day. There was none in the area except for my father Wolfgang, and I was like, would you mind having a private mass for me in my hotel room, because there was no other real place? And he said, absolutely, come along. And he came to the track and came with me. He's just a really nice guy to have around as well. Someone who I also speak with a lot when it comes to questions about spirituality, and I have been very blessed and fortunate when it comes to people around me. Like Father Wolfgang, he's a young priest, very great guy. And when you, people will be able to relate to this when you know somebody, when you're speaking with somebody where you know whatever they're trying to say right now is 100% for you to become the best version of yourself. Those are people you need to hang on to. Those are unique people. And I've been very blessed with that. Like Father Wolfgang is one of those people. I can speak with him at 2 o'clock in the morning for 3 hours about some girl, that I'm upset about. And he will help me through it to become the best version of myself all the time. And this is valuable, And so when he came to the track, it was super great. He came to 2 weekends, I think, he came to 1. And hosted a private mass for me in my hotel room. So that's pretty cool.
Nürburgring is somewhere that I would like him to, if I ever race at Nürburgring, I'll be calling him too.
Please.
And what does that look like over a race weekend? How do you deal with that normally?
What do you mean normally?
Like how do you say that you always will, like, how do you get to pray over a race weekend when you're in, obviously you had him come to Nürburgring, but what would you do normally?
Well, normally I would find a church in the area if I can. So normally there's early morning masses on Sundays. So there'll normally be like a 7 a.m. mass somewhere. So I'll probably take that if I can. If there's no mass, I will probably just read the readings and the gospel, because there's always some wisdom to be found within it, for me at least. And I always do my morning prayers and my evening prayers and anything that you need throughout the day. I always try, if I can speak about sort of the more spiritual aspect, this is, I don't know, it's interesting to anybody, but I always try to make space for God in my life in any place that I go, in any section of my mind or my heart. If there's no space for God, then I try to make space. An example, for example, when you're so laser sharp focused on something, and all you can think about is this one thing, or about this preparation or something, everything for me functions better when I try to connect it with God. So if I'm forgetting about that, then that's not the best thing. So if it comes to cooking or cleaning up or going for a walk or warming up for a race or something, I always try to beforehand try to find a place for God in that thing and share it with him. And same with Jesus Christ in that sense. So that can come with prayer, that can come just simply with being aware of the presence. And I love when people say, I don't need to call it God, I'll call it energy or the universe. I love that. I think that's so true as well. I just have a different name for it. Try to make space for everything else, for the universe around us, for the energies that surround us that are positive, that we're just sometimes forget about. When you're cooking or cleaning or something like this, you're just like, oh, doing something, you can forget about the positivity around that is just inherent. And all you have to do is become aware of it. And so that's basically what I'm doing there. Yeah,
I would say exactly that. I'm not religious specifically, but I do put a lot of trust in the universe. Exactly. And I think that is, I feel like the universe is my gut feeling. It's my instinct. It's sort of, it's you. There's a real comfort in it if you feel like you can trust in what the universe is offering you or telling you, leading you to, or leading you away from.
Yeah. It's awesome. We are animals, yeah. But we have been given the gift for some reason. I don't know why, or I don't think that anybody knows why, but for some reason we are spiritual animals. How? I don't know. You go to any indigenous tribe that had no contact with the outside world in any way, shape, or form. They have spiritual traditions. There is not a single one that doesn't. And they never talk to each other. They don't know that. But somehow through stars, through nature, through somehow they have some sort of ritual which they perform for good spirits or good energy or something like this. We are spiritual by nature. And anybody that denies it, I think, is avoiding the evidence. But okay, anybody have their opinion. I'm super happy with that. But my spirituality functions on a highest level when I'm trying to connect it with what I call God, or who I believe to be my savior, Jesus Christ, or my connection to God directly. I'm not, if you will ask me, I'm not a huge fan of what everything the church does. You know, I associate as a Catholic because I am very close to certain priests that have helped me a lot in my life and given me a lot of good guidance, and at the same time priests that have not, for sure, you know. But at the same time, I'm not a major fan of every single teacher I had in school. I'm a very big fan of a few teachers I had in school, but that doesn't mean that all teachers are crap. That's my approach. You understand?
Yeah.
So I pick and choose the people that I associate to be bringing me on the highway to the strength of my spirituality as a spiritual animal, as we all are, I might assume.
Yeah, I completely agree. You practice meditation, don't you? What does that look like for you?
I was just doing a performance. Meditation for me, well, meditation is part of prayer.
I might put it on YouTube anyway, it's fine. Then we can see
it. Meditation is part of prayer. Meditation is,
I think people see it as sitting cross-legged and chanting, don't they? But
yeah. Chanting, I love chanting. That's a good thing.
Oh, me too, but I know that it freaks out a lot of people I teach meditation or yoga to. With the minute I mention the word chanting, I can see them. If they could get up and walk out the room, then they would do.
Good. That means you're doing it right. Yeah. Meditation is coming back to the moment. You know, that's it. It's it can be manifestation. It can be awareness. For me, what is meditation done? It's being aware that this tree next to me is real and that it's alive. I don't know, you know, that's like a meditation for me. Like,
yeah,
understanding that is the universe just sitting right there, and all I need to do is become aware of the tree, that it is the universe, and that there's more wisdom in that tree than there ever will be within me. You understand? Like, yeah, meditation is about getting yourself out of autopilot, life, existence, job, relationships, create madness, excitement, all that, taking yourself out of autopilot, putting yourself back into the only moment that exists, which is the right now.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment you're, you know, like you said about taking yourself away and giving yourself that time out before the season starts. It's like you're doing a sort of 2-week mindfulness brain dump, aren't you, before the madness kicks in? That must, therefore, like,
and sometimes it's not very pleasant, for sure. The last day was really not pleasant. It was raining and I went surfing and I didn't catch a single wave and I was super angry. And I was just shouting and I was alone and I was just like yelling and I was like, where's this anger coming from? But this is the kind of thing that I need sometimes, you know. I need to let loose. I need to let go of some stuff. Yeah. And this is like, this place is a mirror. Just a freaking mirror.
What's your end goal?
Go to heaven.
What about just before you go to heaven then?
Have kids, become the best husband I can be. Probably my number one goals. It's always been that. Like, people will ask me, what's the most important thing in your life? And since I'm like 10 years old, I'm like, I want to be a dad.
Wow.
Not yet. I'm still being patient. But racing wise, probably more what you were going to ask about. Racing for me is my activity to explore what I might or may not be capable of when it comes to my mind. It's like, it makes me go crazy. It makes me fall in love with it. And I have a very mixed relationship with it. And as long as I am getting more out of it than I'm putting in, I will continue doing it. It's not the one thing that I want to do in my life. I want to do many things. I'm inspired by so many people and many things, which I hope everybody is, to be as inspired by as much as possible. And racing has just been something that I've ended up being quite good at, something that I've enjoyed, and it's given me a lot of happiness and pride, but also just a lot of lessons. So
what do you think you'd have done if you didn't go down the racing route? If racing didn't exist, what would be the parallel universe for Ferdinand?
A rock star, a musician.
Really? A singer or a guitarist or
everything? No, I don't know. You know, for the longest period of time, I was like, I'm going to become a priest. I'm definitely going to become a priest. So there's definitely a parallel universe. So Ferdinand's currently learning to become a priest.
A rock star priest.
Rock star priest. I love music. I love playing instruments. This was the thing that I did before I started racing, where I would just only do music. So probably something to do with some creative nature when it comes to music. I'm currently fully in love with videography and photography. So maybe this will become a new passion of mine. And maybe that could be it as well. But yeah. I don't know the correct answer to that, but I love music. I love being in nature. So maybe one of those, maybe put those two things together somehow.
What if you could say that sort of someone that's inspired you the most on and off track, who would they be?
Well, my granddad is probably my number one. My grandfather, my dad's dad, I think he's probably been my number one inspiration. And somebody that makes me well, I'll start off with my granddad. My granddad was a politician, an author, and I have never ever experienced anybody else be able to be in this world where things can be very tricky and negative, and be able to give as much love as this man gave. I have never experienced that anywhere else. Pretty sure, I hope a lot of people can say this about their own granddad or father or mother, but this guy showed love to people, which I just did not think deserved it. He showed love to people more than you think that he could ever give, and had a beautiful presence and capability to make someone feel connected to themselves or God or love that I've never seen before. So I love that. I'm currently thinking of another guy. Oh, I can't believe I forgot his name. The singer of Queen. How have I forgotten his name? Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury, when I watch this person perform, I feel alive. I love that. So I love Freddie Mercury.
I love him too. Did you watch Bohemian?
Yeah.
That was a great film. I think they did that really, really well.
Yes.
That scene at the end when he's performing and then they flick to Freddie performing.
Yes.
How much do you wish that you'd have been able to watch him live?
Honestly, there's a few things in life that I'd want to do more, but that's bloody cool.
If you meet him when you go to heaven, can you just get a gold pass for me too?
A gold pass?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what a beautiful thing that you said about me, that when I go to heaven, like, I appreciate that a lot. I'm sure we will meet there again. I'll make sure that we'll get a nice little performance from him.
I mean, I'm not assuming that I'll get there, so that's why I need the gold pass, so that no matter what happens, I can not only get to heaven but also get to watch Freddie Mercury while I'm up there.
I have no doubts.
Pretty sure I'm less deserving than you.
You don't even know me. We've met twice. I could be bullshitting my way through this 100%.
This is true. But there are plenty of people listening who know both of us. I'll be going, yeah, she is right.
I doubt it.
So, Ferdinand, there were like a million questions that came in. So I'll read some out for you. Some of them will be sort of a bit more quick fire. Right, so Nikki.jetset, these are all on Instagram. She said, do you have any lucky charms or race day superstitions?
I got my cross, which has a tiny little diamond, which is blessed and meant to represent Jesus Christ, which is why he's on the inside to be by my heart. And I got this little thing, which was originally a bracelet. And it says, I don't know if you can read it, probably not. It says, best godfather ever. And I got it for my goddaughter.
Oh.
And she was born in 2018. So
I love those. And you wear those all the time.
And these are my little change, which I keep with me. And it's not something that you should wear. You should not wear anything when you're driving, because these kind of things are not good when you have an accident. No, but I prefer to keep them on. I just believe it keeps me safer than they will harm me.
Love that. Thank you, Nikki. She's got another question. Any current racing driver's work or career that you admire the most?
I admire Daniel Ricciardo's fashion line. I love his style. I love the way that he approaches things. I think he's awesome. I think I've just seen today Sebastian Vettel promoting a project protecting bees in Austria, which I think is amazing. Seeing the value of bees in our ecosystem is something very important, and I stand behind a lot. Who else?
I haven't forgotten about your campaign, by the way. We will come.
Don't worry about it. It's we'll talk about it later. Yeah, so I think that's really cool. What else? There's a lot of cool things going on. Yeah, those are the two that come to mind right now.
Who is your favorite driver friend? And that question comes from 5 Defender.
Probably, if I don't say Robin Freins, he'll be really upset, but just to get him upset, I'll probably say Sasha Fenestraz.
Oh, I love Sasha.
Yeah.
Oh, what a good guy.
Yeah.
Kathleen Wolber. What's one of the best ways we can be most sustainable? But maybe we'll come to that in a second. Hannah Strew says, is there a place where you can always feel calm and where you easily relax?
Jamaica.
I feel pretty relaxed in Jamaica as well.
Yeah, that was probably a stupid question. Well, in Austria, in Salzburg, I can feel very relaxed because it's just very calm. Put me on any mountain or a beach, I'll be pretty relaxed.
On a surfboard. Surfboard is pretty relaxing.
Sorry?
Surfboard?
Surfboards? Yeah, well, as long as I'm not dying in the waves, it can be very relaxing for sure.
Marco Nifilo, definitely haven't said that right, said, how well did you know Niki Lauda? What was he like?
I've met him maybe like 6 or 7 times, something like that. Or I'd rather say I had the privilege of meeting him 6 or 7 times. The first few times, Niki is just like a force of nature, which when you get in the area within 5 meters of this guy or 10 meters, you're like, your whole body goes like, whoa, like how should I behave now? And I think he's a very intelligent guy, powerful guy. I was quite young, I'd say, also mentally when I met him, that I was not quite ready to hold a proper conversation with him, but certainly somebody to have a lot of respect for.
I remember interviewing him in Singapore at the F1, and just as you say, that energy that came from him was, you can understand why he was the hero that he was. And I walked away thinking, I wish I'd had an hour with that man.
Yeah.
I just didn't have time to ask him everything that I wanted to ask him. And it wouldn't have just been about motorsport. It would have been everything, because he just oozed something that deserved to be delved into.
Absolutely.
G. Garsavalos, another one I've said wrong. Does the Habsburg family still keep Empress Zita's archive?
Probably some of it, for sure. Some of it is probably not in possession of the family. A lot of it belongs to the state of Austria. Probably something I'd have to ask my dad, to be quite honest.
You've got an incredible family history, haven't you?
It's certainly extensive, and in a couple of books, that's for sure. Normally when people hear my last name, anybody that is interested in some form of history, it will ring a bell. Yeah. And it was quite funny. Yesterday evening, I was having dinner with this family who are renting me an Airbnb, and the brother of the wife in the house was like, I know who you are. And I was like, oh yeah? And he was like, you're Francesca Thiessen's son. And it was so cool, because normally when people hear my name, they think about the monarchy or you know, I don't know, 600 years ago, some sort of a Habsburg history. But he was totally obsessed with my mother's side of the family and the contemporary art department. So I've been certainly very blessed when it comes to family members having an impact in culture.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole other podcast.
Possible.
Larry Lewis.217 says, what's your favorite part of racing?
My favorite part of racing is qualifying.
Yeah.
Session.
Do you think that's your strength, is qualifying, or?
It can be, for sure. I just enjoy the intensity of it. One lap, set of new tires, low fuel, whole track to yourself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Mr. Domfred says, music plays an important role in your life. So I'd like to ask what music from your home country you recommend.
Oh my goodness, it's terrible. The recommendation that I have is actually, the cap that I'm wearing is merchandise from a musician, a young Austrian musician who does like the most random genre mixtures between like rock, pop, modern electronic music and stuff like this. And his name is Ferdinand as well. His stage name used to be Left Boy. Now he goes by Ferdinand. And I have on my bucket list, I have make a song with Left Boy. So I love it because it just reminds me of my sort of childhood, because I would listen to Left Boy all the time. But I certainly wouldn't recommend somebody who's trying to understand Austrian culture to listen to it, because it's just not certainly not what I would suggest. But there's beautiful music, Mozart, rock and roll. Off you go, Mozart. Love some Mozart.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with. Do you know what I watched on YouTube? You know, you end up down a rabbit hole on YouTube, can't you? And have you seen Mozart's great granddaughter, it must be, sing?
No.
Be crap, honestly. 10-year-old, she is out of this world. You have to, I don't know how I ended up there, but I watched it and it's incredible.
Wicked, I'll check it out. So maybe to whoever asked that question, probably better off
Checking her out. Yeah. What else is on your bucket list?
Oh, it's very long. I have a very long list of things.
What if you could do something off it tomorrow? What would it be?
I can pull it up quickly. Yeah, it's right here.
I did a wing walk about 3 years ago.
A wing walk?
Yeah, so I stood on the top of a plane while it did.
Oh, no way.
360
That's wicked.
the loop. It was the most exhilarating thing I've ever done. I strongly recommend doing that.
If I could do one thing tomorrow, well, I'd love to be in a song with Left Boy, like I said. I've always wanted to go to a Billie Eilish concert. Yeah. I don't know if you ever heard of the YouTube channel Yes Theory.
No.
It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. I definitely recommend it. And I've always wanted to be on a video with Yes Theory and host an event with them. That'd be very cool.
Arrange this.
Get my skydiving license.
Yeah.
Motorbike through the Atlas mountain range, travel through Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and amongst a lot of other things, climb Mount Everest.
Have you done any other of the big mountains?
Well, I have the one in Austria, the Großglockner.
Yeah.
But I'd say Mount Everest certainly is. My rule for my bucket list is if I have any questions, like if it's actually possible or time-wise, physically, or anything, I eradicate all like, oh, but this will be really this, you know?
Yeah.
If I feel like I'd like to do it, it goes on the list no matter what stands in the way. That's my bucket list rule. Yeah,
that's a good rule. Anna Laura Bonin wants to know how can she learn to cook as well as you?
Well, I don't cook very well. I just wouldn't suggest that at all. I enjoy cooking. Here's my tip. I love to use oregano.
That's the secret.
I love a chunk of oregano in my and a little chili. Fresh chili and some oregano. I'll be very happy. So that's my go-to.
Yeah, secrets. Okay.
Recently, I've been very good at making this Middle Eastern breakfast dish with like tomato sauce and vegetables and some eggs. What's it called? What is it called? Man, I'm really bad with names today. But anyways, anybody that knows what I'm talking about will know. Tomato sauce, eggs, all in one pan. Lots of different vegetables, some chili. Oh,
yeah,
delicious.
That sort of rings a bell. Actually, I'm a terrible cook.
Never too late. It's an art. You can do it.
It's true.
I've always wanted to become a better drawer because I am the worst drawer in history. But I always carry around a block of paper and some different colors, and I just start scratching on it. But I have no orientation or know what to draw. I just bring it along because I feel like I need to. Practice makes perfect.
Should be able to draw. Yes. Yeah, that's fair. Angela KJSH says, what is the country that you would most like to visit?
That I have not been to. I've never been to Tanzania, and I'm very keen to go to Tanzania. I've been to India, but I've been to a very small part in it, and I would love to explore more of India. I've never been to South Africa. I want to go there. I want to go to Canada. Never been there.
Oh, the Canadians are amazing.
So that's a small part of my list.
Mabero 410 says, any advice to the Christian youth?
Find a church community that you enjoy. I was desperately looking for a church community which I could connect with and be close with, because normally when I go to church and I'm just looking for something random to go to mass, I'm sitting there maybe with 5 or 6 other very old people, and that's pretty much it. The priest and a couple of very old people that go to church every Sunday, and me. There's never young people there, and it's very sad. And so I was like, okay, I've got to find where these young Christian people are that I can speak with, that I can talk to, that I can enjoy my time with, a priest that I can have a connection with. And so in Vienna, I found Zentrum Johannes Paul II, which is in Maxergasse 10, I think it's, yeah, the address. So if anybody in Vienna is searching, that's the place I would go to, Zentrum Johannes Paul II. It's in the 3rd district, I think. And if you're not in Vienna, finding young people that one can connect with for me was the game changer, because going to church on your own is no fun. And even though you benefit from it, for sure, you benefit a lot more from it when you have people around you that are on a similar path. I think that's with anything the case.
Yeah, that's so true. 3 David Jabo, have you ever used your prince status?
Every day. Depends what you mean by that. What I my prince status. No, I don't know. You can get very mixed responses from that, so I wouldn't recommend.
If I had a princess status, I probably would have used it a lot to get into the members clubs in London.
I'm normally charming enough myself to get wherever I need to go, so I don't need to pull that card out. So I try not to, for sure, because on the one hand, also you can come across as pretty much just basically a dick if you pull out something that is your and it's certainly not my intention. So
not your go-to chat up line then.
If a place doesn't want me for me, they can go to hell. So if a place wants me for me, I'll go in there.
Where did your passion for motorsport come from? That's Frank WRC.
So Frank, I got into a go-kart when I was 11 and I never wanted to get out.
Fair enough. Eduardo Felipe 88, how do you like to spend your free time besides sport activities?
I like to spend time with friends of mine. I like to spend time with my family. I like to spend time somewhere in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Atlantic, by myself. And I love going to churches. I think that they are beautiful buildings. They have incredible art in them most of the time. They always have a vibration coming from them that I find very beautiful. Those kind of things I certainly enjoy to do by myself or in my free time. Play some music.
You also asked how many kids you plan to have.
No idea. As many as God gives me. I don't want to be too irresponsible. I know we have an overpopulating problem, but I think I'm one of 3. I think that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, I think people quite often want to have what they grew up with.
Yeah.
I guess because you can understand the benefits of it, can't you? I've just had a baby, and at the moment, I grew up with a brother. At the moment, the idea of having a second is not very appealing. But
I'm sure.
She's really 9 weeks old, so
congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Okay, so one of the questions earlier on was about how to encourage, what we can do about sustainability. So tell us about your incredible campaign.
Oh, well, it's starting off very high. I think now I'm under pressure to make it sound amazing.
It's unreal.
It's getting more difficult. Yeah, over the winter, I obviously had my winter break, my hibernation sleep, and I then went to Daytona and Asian Le Mans series, and I just kind of found I don't know. My mom has always been somebody who's been very invested in more sustainability and ocean conservation and stuff like this. So I certainly had that influence. But I was just becoming more and more aware that, okay, racing is my job. That's what I do. But what I do is what I love. But at the same time, it's horrifically wasteful in many ways. And I was certainly at a tipping point where I was like, becoming more and more aware, and I was like, is it my responsibility to stop racing because I see the negative side of it? And I was like, that certainly would be logical on one side, but actually completely illogical on the other, because the industry of motorsport, fortunately, in a way, is something that's very powerful and very big and effective when it comes to reaching out to people. And I've always said that sports is the best ambassador for getting messages across. Because there are a few things in the world that gets people together as much as sports do. There's concerts and sports, pretty much. If you watch people root for somebody, or are rooting for a football team or something like this, the intense connections that you can build are extremely strong energies that one can harness for some good things. And since racing is the sport that I am a part of always, also the thing that I've done, I was like, okay, well, what if I was able to find a way to make my sport less environmentally impactful, so lower our carbon footprint in ways that I was just trying to explore, just because it's not something most racing drivers will go and do, is try to find how to have a lower footprint. And is there a way that I can bring across a message of trying to protect certain parts of nature through, let's say, the nature of carbon offsetting or more? And so I went down the road and I just sort of did a bunch of my research. I got in contact with a company called Green Future Project, which is quite an international young company run by young people who I connected with very quickly, very globally based, and kind of had exactly the kind of energy that I wanted. Their main focus is on getting industries and companies to become more sustainable and to offset their emissions, their footprint that they already have. And I was like, okay, guys, I want to have a racing car completely carbon neutral, if not more carbon positive. I don't know if that's the correct word to put it. But when I got into contact with the European Le Mans Series team Algarve Pro, they basically said, like, okay, Ferdinand, we've got a third car. We'd love to have you in the car. And I said, great. And me and the team owner, Stuart Cox, who is actually somebody who is always very aware of his carbon footprint, he'd already eradicated single-use plastics from the garage and stuff like this. So trying to be more conscious of his racing, was like, okay, Ferdinand, I like your idea, I like your project. I'll give you the car livery. You can do with it what you want, and you can have influence on the team as long as you kind of end up doing the project. So I took this on board and I was like, all right, I'll start a whole campaign. So I started the campaign called Drive Fast, Act Faster, which is basically, the idea is to not stop the things that make us passionate, not stop the things that give us energy, not stop the things that make us feel alive, but to act on things that are having a negative impact and at least counteracting them, if not more. So with Green Future Project, I decided on a project that I wanted to support, which is a place called the Narupa Reserve in Ecuador, which is a large forest slowly getting eaten away by a deforestation company in Ecuador. And I was like, okay, if I could be the one to organize a campaign where a forest that is one of the most biodiverse forests on the planet is protected not only by my racing car, but by a racing championship, I think that's pretty freaking cool. And what a good message to have. Petrol heads protecting a forest. I think that's just, there is a contradiction in the wording behind it, but there isn't necessarily one if you really look at it. I don't know, I'm also a fan of a bit of controversy, a bit of a changing of the norm. So the car livery that I ended up designing is, well, with the design, obviously not just me, is an image of the forest that the car is protecting. We have done with the company a complete assessment of our total carbon footprint for the whole year. and that is around 102 tons of CO2 that is being pumped out by the flights of all the people, all the hire cars, the fuel in the car itself, the car, the tires, everything that we are using and doing throughout a whole championship campaign, including testing, including racing, everything comes out to that number using, they are the experts, but using scientific research to be able to calculate it as accurately as possible. And in the Narupa Reserve, to offset about 102 tons of CO2, it takes around 3 acres of land to offset that in the year. And the reason why I went for forest protection and not planting trees is because when a forest gets chopped down, on the one hand, it releases a large amount of CO2 that the trees store, which is damaging for the environment. And on top of that, if you are protecting trees, they are already eating up CO2 that year. Whereas if you plant a tree, you need to wait pretty much 80 years for them to offset what you had set out to do on that year itself. So that was like, I want my carbon footprint this year to be neutral, not in 50 years time. So I went for that project. And so instead of just protecting 3 acres, we're protecting 10 acres. So it's not only about carbon footprint offsetting, but about forest protection in general, and it being one of the most valuable assets that we can have. So I'll just get into details. To protect 1 acre of land in the Narupa Reserve, it is $350. Or 350 euros, sorry, 350 euros to protect 1 acre of the Narupa Reserve. So we are spending a total of 3,500 euros of my budget to go racing in the European Le Mans Series to protect the forest, which will then offset or protect 3 times as much carbon that we will be putting out. And my campaign is branded on the car. And I'm planning on, well, I already have WRT joining. WRT are joining the program. Their WEC car and their ELMS car are joining the program. Obviously, because WEC is a world championship, they travel more. So instead of 10 acres, they are doing 15 acres. So WRT are protecting 25 acres themselves as part of the Drive Fast, Act Faster campaign. My ELMS car is doing 10 acres, and I have a target to try to get 2 to 3 teams per race weekend in meetings and have them join the campaign if possible. On top of that, we've done things like we have a lot of team kit. You know, everybody has team kit. Everybody needs to look the same for the sponsors and all that. And instead of using the typical cheapest chips, normal clothes and then printing on it, I wanted to be like, okay, well, we're going to be using a lot of clothing here that gets thrown away at the end. Why don't we use a sustainable company? Or so we found a company called Merchant Tailor. They use upcycled plastics and sustainable ways of printing, and also certain forms of cotton, which is sustainable, and using that as the team kit, which will then also be sold as merchandise on my website. And all of the proceeds from that will also go to the Narupa Reserve to try to get the fans involved as well. So that's been my project, getting everybody to try to have maybe a new way of doing motorsport and raising awareness for forest protection, which has been very an enjoyable project to work on.
I'm sure it is, and it sounds like you've learned. Like, you've just educated me very quickly, very briefly. But I just had no idea, even of like 1 acre being, 3,000 or so euros. That's incredible. And surely, I think putting it like that makes it a very achievable thing, doesn't it? Because I think people, when it's on a world crisis level like this, we kind of go, I can't do anything. I can't do anything to help. Whereas actually you can, and you are, and you have the potential of using the global platform that is motorsport. That's a very lucrative platform as well, where, if, like you say, your WEC team, people, they can afford to do this, to start making that shift.
Yeah, which is great. Like, if you think about it, to run an ELMS car for a team, it's 1.8 million euros plus or minus. You understand? It's a huge budget to run a car like that. So to protect 10 acres of forest that has a protection, it eats up 300 tons of CO2 a year is incredible, and the amount of benefit that they will have on this is huge. And it's a minute amount of money compared to that. And I'm not trying to suggest to every single person out there to go and buy 10 acres of land in Ecuador, but to our scale, I think this is relevant. I think this is powerful, and I think it should be that sort of moving force. That's also why I definitely wanted to do the merchandise, because the merchandise also has the branding on it for the Green Future Project, the Drive Fast, Act Faster, a picture of the forest on the back, just to know, okay, you can buy this T-shirt, which is completely from made out. You're cleaning the oceans by buying the T-shirt, because the T-shirt is made out of upcycled plastic from Vietnam, from the beaches in Vietnam. And it's just these things where I love starting now to support other companies which are focusing their efforts towards sustainability. And like now I got in contact with a surfboard company which makes surfboards out of recycled plastic. So I'm going to do some work with them, and because of my passion of surfing. And you just kind of get a dive into this world of people really trying to make some change. And all you need is a few more voices to reach out. And the thing that I noticed is there's actually a lot of people that are keen on helping and doing something because they are aware of it. But the research is out there. Like, if you really want to know, all you got to go on Google. The information is out there, but one needs to make a way to make this sexy. We need to make being sustainable sexy. It is becoming more sexy for sure, but we need to make it the sexiest thing that you can do, to buy a T-shirt out of upcycled plastic. Like, oh, that's so cool. And what's the best way to do it? Have a racing car protect a forest. What's sexier than a racing car protecting a forest? Well, I'm sure there's other things, but I think
driving it.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes it more sexy or less, but I think the racing car itself will look awesome. It's being debuted with its new livery on Monday next week, and I'm super keen and excited.
That is so exciting. And I think there's a lot of backlash, isn't there, when it comes to motorsport? The likes of Lewis Hamilton, talking about sustainability, but then people get so angry, about his carbon footprint. What's your reaction to that sort of thing?
I can't speak on Lewis Hamilton's end because I don't know exactly what he does. I know that he speaks out a lot on his platforms, which has a large reach. For me, whatever you do that is in some or another mildly controversial, there will be somebody who has an opinion against it. I've had the benefit so far. Everything has been rosy green, it's all been rock and roll. Because I think that my intention is I'm not out here to force somebody else to come on this trip with me. I'm doing something. I'm starting a project with other teams, and I'm making it a public thing. That's all I'm doing. And I am trying to make being sustainable. Like, for example, when I was speaking with people, why don't you make the championship increase the entry fee by 3,000 euros, and then that money goes towards Ecuador? And I was like, no, I don't want to force people to do this. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I don't want people to be forced to have to do this. I want people to think that this is wicked, and everybody I've spoken with thinks it's pretty cool and fun. And by the end of the year, what I want to go and do is I want to grab 5 or 6 racing drivers who joined my thing, and we fly to Ecuador and we go and hang out in the trees. And well, how cool is that? Anyways, that's what I'm trying to do. I don't want to be aggressive in my nature when it comes to this kind of change. I think it will only ever happen if I think is necessary, if you have people willingly come along from their own hearts, and it doesn't even have to be because they are in love with trees, but just because we all have a responsibility to clean our house, because if we don't clean our house, it's going to look freaking disgusting. And if you go to anywhere around the world that isn't properly sought after, you see plastic and shit everywhere, and it's like, okay, we can all have a little bit of, setting up recycling bins within the garage was one of the things that we did this year, because we had one big trash can and that's where everything went in. And it's like, okay, well, so we're taking care of the cleaners within our garage, but not when it goes out into where the trash goes. So I was like, all right, we're going to start using recycling bins within the garage, because we still are a racing team. We still use resources. And what I found interesting for me, which changed a lot within how I saw it, is sustainability does not mean stop. Being sustainable does not mean stop flying. It does not mean stop eating everything. stop using paper or toothbrushes. It just means when you hack down a tree to make paper out of it, you plant another one. It just means if you're going to eat a meat or a fish, make sure you're doing it from a farm or a place where they look after the animals, or and aren't torturing them. It just means if you're going to buy clothing, you can maybe think about going to a place which uses things that cleans up our planet and doesn't make it worse. And that's what sustainability means to me. It doesn't mean stop buying clothes.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that.
And because that's when people dig their heels in, isn't it? Like you say, you don't want to force people, you want to lead by example, which is what you're doing. And if people do find it accessible, that you're opening doors to people going, oh, okay, most people are lazy. I'm lazy. I would love to be doing things, but I get distracted. I do other things. I'll do my little bits, if you like. But
that's all that one needs. Honestly, I don't want that message to be any different. Doing that little bit, separating your trash, or making sure that you don't have a complete wasteful nature, and that one is aware about where one is, that I don't throw things out of the car window, onto the highway, stuff like that. Simple, small changes is all that one needs in reality. We are just a couple percent over where we should be when it comes to our carbon footprint as humanity. And if we all make a small difference, that's all it takes. We don't need people to give away half their money. We don't need people to start giving up on their dreams in any way, shape, or form. One should be aspiring to keep the dreams going, but being aware. I don't want to go into my house if it's disgusting and stinky. Nobody does. You want to go into a nice clean house, don't you? So we just do a little bit. When I have a stacked up dishes in my kitchen, because I like to cook, I can't be bothered. It's just awful. I just don't want to cook anymore, do I? So when I do a little bit here, I just clean the plate, so it's all nice and tidy. I'm not very good at making analogies about that, but and also I'm not probably the one to speak about most about it. Probably somebody who knows a lot more about it is my mum. But my notion was like, okay, I have time, I have access to a lot of people, I'm well connected in this world, which can be wasteful. And I have a certain amount of knowledge after spending a couple of weeks researching, getting to know these people at Green Future Project, and they've opened my eyes, and off I went.
You see, at the beginning, you said it, you didn't know if it was incredible or not. I can flat say that yes, it is.
Awesome.
#drive fast, act faster, isn't it? That's what people can start using, and I'll make sure that I put the links in the blurb so that they follow and learn, and follow the journey and what you're doing. Ferdinand, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that you would like to say to people?
I'm 23 years old. I don't know too much about life yet, so take everything with a pinch of salt. My opinions will change. I hope yours do as well. Yeah, I don't know anything. I'm just trying to figure it out. And anybody that's in my age group that is trying to figure out, I'm in the same path. So I don't know anything, and I'm just blessed to be on a route where I am sort of learning and falling down rabbit holes and going up mountains. So I wish everybody else does the same.
You're awesome. What do you do for the rest of your day?
Actually, I wanted to go surfing today, but the waves are just too crazy for me. So I need to wait until Friday when the swell comes down. So today I will, I don't know, probably drive around, take some pictures. But it's like mixed with rain. So anyways, I'll probably do a hike or something like that. Do some mix.
Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it. It's been a blessing.
And have a lovely afternoon, and good luck with race 1. My goodness, we'll be watching.
And all the best to you and your child. That's really awesome.
Thank you. I'll no doubt see you at some racetrack, maybe Macau later this year. Will you do Macau?
Oh, I'd love to.
I'll see you on the top step of the podium this time, rather than. Thanks, Ferdinand.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.